Hey everyone, welcome to Virgo season week 2. I'm so glad that you're joining me. This week we are chatting about the tarot cards that are correlated with Virgo to really help us just embrace this energy even more and to understand how this energy and these themes and this archetype shows up in our life in a very real way, and how we can really work with that in a very real way. The tarot provides an excellent framework to help us further understand all of these astrological signs. So even if you're not an avid tarot reader or a tarot reader at all, this lesson should help you understand to a deeper level what Virgo season is bringing us. So the affirmation for this week is, I can make so much out of what is. I love that. Just returning to that every time you think of it, returning to this truth, this belief that you can create so much out of what already exists in front of you. This helps remind us to be present with what is, which is a big theme for this week, and to embrace our magic, which is another big theme for this week, and to not wish for anything to be different. We get to focus on how much we can create out of what already exists in our life and what gifts we already bring to the table without fretting too much about what feels missing. Okay, so I'm just gonna hop right into these tarot cards. We're gonna talk about the Hermit, which rules Virgo. We're gonna talk about the Magician, because Mercury rules Virgo and the Magician rules Mercury. And then briefly, I'm just going to talk about the suit of Pentacles in general, because Virgo is an earth sign and the Pentacles represent the earth element. So, the Hermit. The Hermit is an initiation into divine timing, understanding divine timing, and exploring our relationship with time. We have to realize that we can only ever be in the moment that we are in. We can only ever be in the moment we are in, right? And we get to learn to be our own sense of refuge in whatever moment we are in. We get to embrace an accepting and wise relationship with time, where we let go of our expectations of what time is supposed to bring us, and we really learn to work with what is. This is about working with divine timing rather than our will. This is about allowing us to be of divine service with what is not on our time. And I'll explain more of the symbology of this card later, but for now, just consider this lantern only illuminates one step at a time. This lantern is only bringing light to what is right in front of the Hermit. The Hermit brings us to a state of non-doing, not doing. It's a meditative state, a sacred pause, an invitation to pay attention. Mike Posner speaks about pausing and being alone on his podcast called What Does This All Mean? An episode in November 2017. He describes what it was like for him to spend 7 days entirely alone in a cabin without a clock in the Colorado mountains. He had no program, no thing to accomplish, no agenda, no tasks whatsoever, which was kind of the point. He wanted to explore who he was without all of the tasks and all of the things to do. What are you when there's nothing to do? What are you when there's no external validation? What are you when you're the hermit, alone and away from everything else. Mike shares that he quickly realized, up in that cabin with no clock in the Colorado mountains, he quickly realized his brain's tendency to try to create tasks for him to do. He shared that he learned that doing nothing is the hardest thing to do. He says it was nearly unbearable. That's a quote, nearly unbearable. How much of the time are you creating tasks for yourself to feel productive that you don't actually really care about? How many of your goals or tasks or to-do lists, how many things on your to-do list right now do you actually passionately care about? What percentage of your thoughts do you waste on things like your appearance or the food you're consuming, or seeking acceptance or trying to be productive? What percentage of your thoughts do you waste on things that you don't actually, that don't matter, that you don't care about, or things that don't even really exist right now, right? Meaning anything that exists in the past or the future doesn't actually exist. The past and the future are kind of figments of our imagination, right? They don't actually exist right now. So what percentage of your thoughts are you wasting fretting about the past or the future? And what do you want your right now to be focused on? Listen to this episode of his podcast. It's really enlightening. He's beautiful, beautifully spoken, very eloquent. It's really brilliant and inspiring. And it gives us, I've always found it really interesting. And that's something that I would like to do for myself one day, is spend, a week would be challenging and cool, to spend a whole week in complete isolation with no tasks, just so that I can explore myself and my brain and see what would happen, see what would come up for me. Now that's the Hermit. The Hermit invites us to adopt a willingness to go slowly. It reminds us that all that exists is the present. And the only way to be present, the only way to be present is to be here, to be with what is, to get out of our thoughts of the past or the future. The Hermit invites us to practice eliminating distractions, or the ways that we numb ourselves, the ways we escape what is present, the ways we try to just jump back to like a happy mood, even if that's not authentic in the moment. We get to practice eliminating all of that and to simply be with what is. So you have to have a pretty good working knowledge of, how do you self-soothe? And what do you use to distract yourself? Like, what external things do you find yourself focusing on? Is it YouTube, games, social media, work, relationships with others? How do you escape your mind? Be really clear on that. The ways that you distract yourself, the ways you uncenter yourself. Be really aware of what your tendencies are. That way you can kind of call yourself back into the present moment when you find yourself doing those things. Because rather than escaping or distracting, we're practicing willingness to be with what is, even if that means being with discomfort or pain. And that might simply just mean acknowledging and pausing and being with the pain, and being with our desire to escape the discomfort, being with the desire to just get back to happiness or numbness. We don't have to know what to do with our discomfort. It's about not needing a solution. You don't always need a solution. It's about not needing to escape it or fix it. Being with what is even if that's uncomfortable, and finding refuge within ourselves wherever we find ourselves. Which, when we can eliminate all the external ways that we distract and numb ourselves and escape reality, this allows us to learn how to self-soothe from within, like authentically, no matter what the situation is, no matter what is available to us outside of us. We get to learn to become our own sacred, beautiful place of refuge, regardless of what is existing outside of us. It's about honoring our ability to be with what is, analyzing it with our brilliant human minds, shining our little lantern on it, and make the most of our experience. And then moving forward carefully from there to the next step that the lantern illuminates for us. We're not waiting for anything to change or go away. Not a thing. We're working with, being with, accepting of what is. Focus on doing all that you can with the circumstances you're in. Which brings us back to our mantra for the week. I can make so much out of what is. Thich Nhat Hanh is the author of many books, my favorite it's called Being Peace. And he gives an excellent metaphor in that book that I'd like to read to you. Quote, I like to use the example of a small boat crossing the Gulf of Siam. In Vietnam, there are many people called boat people who leave the country in small boats. Often the boats are caught in rough seas or storms. The people may panic and boats can sink. But if even one person aboard can remain calm, lucid, knowing what to do and what not to do, he or she can help the boat survive. His other expressions, his face and his voice, communicates clarity and calmness, and people have trust in that person. They will listen to what that person says. One such person can save the lives of many, unquote. Now, Thich Nhat Hanh doesn't say this, but that person's totally a Virgo. I think that person's totally a Virgo. An empowered Virgo, right? Because maybe a disempowered Virgo would overthink and get very anxious and afraid and allow their brilliant brain to cripple them. But this empowered Virgo is aware that if they remain calm and they just focus on what is, and they let their power, their lantern, illuminate what the next step is, that they can save the boat. And this person on the boat who is so calm is also aware that their expressions, their face and their voice can communicate clarity and calmness, which is a very Mercury thing, which Mercury rules Virgo, and Mercury is the planet of like communication and expression. So Mercury has everything to do with our expression of ourselves, how we communicate, both like with our voice and not with our voice, with our energy and our body language. So Thich Nhat Hanh doesn't say this, but that person's totally a Virgo. He does go on to say, quote, our world is something like a small boat. Compared with the cosmos, our planet is a very small boat. We are about to panic because our situation is no better than the situation of the small boat in the sea. Humankind has become a very dangerous species. We need people who can sit still and be able to smile, who can walk peacefully. We need people like that in order to save us. You are that person. Each of you is that person. Unquote. We all have this capacity to be that person. So remember, nothing will come to you unless it's the exact right time for you to be with it. Really adopt that as a truth with a capital T in your life, that nothing will come to you. This can be a value of yours. This can be a very foundational belief of your life, that nothing will come to you unless it's the exact right time for you to figure out how to be with it. So wherever you find yourself, you can at least know that the timing is divine. Even if you're feeling afraid or totally ill-equipped to handle what's happening, you can and will handle what's happening. And you can best do so by being the calm one in the boat in the storm. I mentioned before, it's an important thing to remember. The future does not exist. The past does not exist. It's impossible. We cannot know what's to come, and we cannot return to what was. These things are literally a figment of our imagination. We literally make them up. They do not exist. Crooked bun happening. We have to be with what is. We have no choice but to go with the timing of our lives, to surrender to the timing of our lives, to see what is being shown to us, to accept where we are when we're there. We have no choice, because really, what else is there? To fight it? To ignore it? Blissful ignorance, sticking your head in the sand and fighting against time and the actual literal laws of nature? And we're all guilty of trying that. How well does that work? How well does it work when we try to put off the inevitable or ignore red flags? We have to be with what is. So we have a beautiful invitation with the Hermit to practice making the most of what is. Always asking, how can I make the best of this? How can I make the best of this? Dropped a full jar of pickles? You're in the middle of a fight with your partner or your mother? You're stuck in traffic, running late for something important? How can we make the best of this? The jar of pickles is a trigger for me. Just kidding. It's not triggering. But it's a real example from my life. I was like 10 minutes away from a session with a client, and I'm pregnant and I wanted a pickle. So I knew I had a brand new jar of pickles in the pantry, and I pull it out and drop the whole thing. The glass jar on the floor. So there's pickles everywhere, pickled juice everywhere, spices all over the place, and glass. And of course my dogs come running over, and I'm like yelling at them to stay away. I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to clean this up? The house is going to smell like pickles for a week. I was going to be late for my client, and I was feeling very disempowered. Very disempowered. It's like, fuck, why? No, I was pissed. I was pissed off. A brand new jar of pickles wasted. And look at this mess. That's dangerous to clean up because there's shards of glass. And in the middle of me throwing a bit of an adult tantrum about it, I text my client, it's like, fuck, I'm going to be late. I'm so sorry. I have to clean this up. And like nothing felt good in that moment. And somehow I kind of like shook, maybe because I'm pregnant, I kind of shook myself out of it. And I was like, whoa. If it were my future son who dropped the jar of pickles and I were about to have a session, how would I want to react to that? How would I want to parent him through that? And not only that, but how do I want to parent myself through this? Because there's a little girl inside of me who was being reprimanded in that moment. God, if you would just slow down. How could you let this happen? Jesus Christ, now what? Now look. Waste a jar of pickles. if I heard a parent talking to a child like that over a spilt jar of pickles, I'd be pretty horrified. And I would hope that I'd never speak to my child like that over something like a jar of spilt pickles. I'd want to teach my child how to clean it up, accept the mistake, experience the bummer, and clean it up and carry on, right? That's an example of, well, pausing and being with what is and deciding to make the most of what is. And in order for me to make the most of a spilt jar of pickles, I needed to kind of laugh it off, and I needed to just parent myself through it, be kind to myself through it, and clean up the pickles. Find a different snack. So it's an anecdotal little example, and it's pertinent, right? When you find yourself in a fight, an argument with your partner or your mother or the cashier, whatever. When you find yourself stuck in traffic, freaking out about being late, when you're dealing with a difficult customer, when somebody's disrespecting your boundaries, no matter what is, how can you make the most of what is? This is a sacred invitation to work on squeezing the juiciness out of life. In every single moment, we get to use your sensuality and your taste for pleasure to squeeze the juiciness out of any moment that exists. Find mindfulness, spelled MIND-FULL-ness. Mindfulness, where your mind is full of what's present for you and fully engaging with and enjoying what is present for you. Lindsay Mack, my tarot teacher, says that this card reminds us that the more you want to fly away, the slower we're going to go. And the more you want to get out of what you're in, the more you're going to hang out here. It's building us, building up our stamina, building up our ability to be with what is. So some symbolism of the card. This being is only carrying what they can carry. A walking stick or a wand, representing their connection to the power within. And the lantern, another extension of their inner fire, and it only illuminates the next step. This being is intently focused on what exists in front of them. So some questions to consider. How present are you willing to be with your life? How can you return to the present moment and feel at home here? Who are you without all the distractions, without all the external things? Where or when are you most likely to resist being with what is? When is that the hardest for you? What are the ways that you have learned to self-soothe using external things? And how can you become your own sense of refuge no matter what exists externally? So that's the Hermit. I'm going to take a quick pause and be right back to chat about the Magician. All right, the Magician. The Magician, if you were with us in Expansive Astrology Academy for Gemini season, the Magician came up then too, because Mercury rules both Gemini and Virgo. So with the Magician card, we're exploring personal empowerment. How do we create? How do we engage with our tools, our gifts, with what is in front of us? How do you communicate? What tools do you have that help you connect with yourself, with spirit or source or God or that which is greater? How do you use what's at your fingertips and what you've experienced in order to express what you know? This is all about honoring your power. And Mercury, and thus the Magician, require us to express what we know, to do something, with what is inside of us. So, and in Virgo, we have an invitation to be of service, an opportunity to look at what wants to come through and what can we share with the world, what wants to be expressed. We have to embrace a willingness to allow what wants to come through. So really managing our tendency to like cut it off and edit ourselves. We're honoring our connection to God or that which is greater, which means honoring our intuition and like our impulses, our soul whispers, our guts calling. This also requires us to tend to our nervous system, tending to being open in the mind and in the root, being open to what wants to come through and marrying that with an action. Both being open to what wants to come through and doing something about it. Some of us get stuck there with the doing the damn thing. We'll manifest and we'll dream and we'll be maybe very connected to ourselves and our soul. But then when it comes to like doing something, marrying that with an action, we fall short. Now the magician is also connected to ace energy, being the number one card in the majors. And ace energy reminds us that it can't happen. Nothing can happen unless we reach out and take the invitation. We have to co-create with the universe. We get to say, I'm open to what is in my highest and best interest, and I am an active and powerful co-creator in this life. Use your magic. Do the damn thing. Find yourself, place yourself in alignment to receive. Remove energetic blockages. Remove those things from your life that keep you disconnected from yourself and disconnected from your magic. This is about feeling your power and honoring your power and surrendering to spirit. Don't be so concerned or caught up in overthinking or needing to know the details or needing to know how this shit works. Just trust in your power. Trust in divine timing. Now, when we discuss this in Gemini season, it's different than discussing it in Virgo season. Now Gemini is air energy. So it's a lot of brain chemistry and understanding and thinking. We're in earth energy now. So that means using the medicine of the magician to do the damn thing, to make it earthly. How to use our magic and use our connection to source and spirit to affect change in our earthly material lives. Again, where the person has a hand up and a hand down, signifying that their willingness to be a channel for source or spirit or magic to come through them. So we're marrying our power to co-create with our ability to surrender to what is. So some questions to ask yourself. What wants to come through me? What is being shown to me? In what ways can I best honor my power? In what ways have I been cutting myself off from my power? How can you embrace your ability to actively co-create your world? How can you be more open to receiving? How can you be more connected to your magic? Consider those things. And you'll be mastering the medicine of the magician. Now, finally, we have, just briefly, a quick little chat about the Suit of Pentacles. The Pentacles are relevant, again, because They represent the element earth, and Virgo is an earth sign, the second earth sign of the zodiac. So the suit of pentacles asks us to say yes to the soul in each moment we're alive on this planet. The pentacles ask us to do something with what we're given, to engage with this earthly existence in a soul-centered way. What is a part of your destiny, and how can you bring it down and out and into the world? The suit is about our devotion to our work, to growing, to bringing something into our world. I don't know about you, but the combination of these things is really inspiring to me, considering how the magician and the hermit support each other and interact with each other. Is very inspiring to me. So homework for this week is mindfulness. Really, embracing mindfulness, finding the juiciness in every moment, whether that's brushing your teeth or peeling a piece of fruit or sitting watching reruns of The Office with your partner, or alone. When you're sitting in traffic on your commute, when you're waiting for, I don't know, want something frustrating to wait for, when you're hangry and you're waiting for your food to be ready. How can you squeeze the juiciness out of every moment, whatever comes up in the present moment, squeezing all that you can, all of the magic out of every moment, moment to moment to moment. Which is great foundational work for the big calling of Virgo, which is to refine the way that we show up to our lives, which we'll talk about more in the next couple of weeks. So for now, good luck. For now, the challenge is to increase your tolerance for what is. Thanks so much for being here. I really hope this served. I really hope this lands well for you, and that you're able to squeeze the juiciness out of this lesson, right? Take what you need, leave the rest. Take what feels important for you right now, leave the rest. It's totally fine. And let me know how you're doing. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much for being here. We'll talk soon. Take care of yourself.